so much, and it's wonderful to be here because I am Latvian, but actually I've lived in Latvia, but I've never worked in Latvia, so it's wonderful to be here. So I'm Agate, one of the general partners of Nordic VC, which today is the largest impact tech-focused fund. So what did I want to talk to you about? Well, first, I wanted to talk to you about why I think that it's so important that startups contribute towards really addressing some of the world's biggest challenges. And secondly, I wanted to talk to you about why I think it's the best investment opportunity out there at the moment. So, to kick off, I wanted to show you, this graph. This is possibly the most beautiful statistical graph that you will ever see. Because what that shows is that over the last 3 decades, the world has been getting better, and better when you measure it based on child mortality, hunger, and poverty. So it's truly optimistic picture and something that we should all celebrate. At the same time, I'm sure that you can relate with me that these days, whenever you open a newspaper, it really feels like we live in a state of constant emergency. Climate crises, the rise of the far right. Today, more people suffer from anxiety and depression than ever. Why? If the previous graph painted such an optimistic picture, why are we seeing all of this? Well, one of the reasons is that we live in a new world and there is a new set of new problems that are emerging. And if you have new problems, then the old solutions can't keep up anymore. The old solutions, where we saw the optimistic graph, was in many ways driven by economic growth. But today, economic growth alone is not enough to keep addressing the challenges. And at Norsken, we really believe that startups are part of the solution. And we can drive huge change by combining these three elements. So first of all, why startups? Why are startups part of addressing these challenges? Well, because entrepreneurs are the relentless types, and because we take risks. Every single one of you in the room, be it you are a founder, you're an investor, or you work for a startup, we're in the business of taking risk. We take risk every day. We're more likely to fail than we are to succeed, yet we embrace the risk. And the fact that we embrace the risk gives us freedom. It gives us freedom to experiment and take really bold bets. And that's why sometimes governments, or also around the world, there are so many fantastic organizations, non-profit organizations, solving a lot of challenges, but they can't afford to take a risk. So if you have 10 million, if Red Cross has access to $10 million, should they invest that $10 million into solutions that they know work and can perhaps help 100 people? Or should they invest that 10 million into a new project that they have no idea whether it's going to work or not? So these organizations are not designed to take risk. But if we don't take risk, then we don't really break new grounds. And that's why startups are so important. And why technology? We're exclusively focused driving impact through technology. Well, again, technology is hugely powerful. Just imagine that today, smartphone is more powerful than the computer that took the first man to the moon. So if a smartphone today could take man to the moon years back, imagine what we can do if we use technology to create impact. Let's not create another photo sharing app. Let's really break grounds and use the power of technology. And I wanted to show you what we mean by that through 2 case studies. So enough of theory, let's dive into the practice. So starting with the problem, there are around 1 billion farmers that live around the equator in the tropical climates. What most of us don't know is that the weather forecast for them is completely unreliable. So if they harvest at the wrong time or they lay their fertilizers at the wrong time, they can lose years' worth of harvest. And these are farmers that rely on $2 a day. And here's a solution. One company that we have invested in, a Swedish-based company called Ignitia. Founders of these companies worked for years on algorithms to redesign weather forecasts specifically for these areas. And today, their solution is more than double the accuracy of the existing weather forecasts in the area. Huge impact. The farmers who use their weather forecasts report increase in yields by 65%. So huge impact on the lives of these farmers. But at the same time, they're also building massively scalable, profitable business model. Today they have 1 million subscribers. The way it works is that farmer sends a text message and gets back an extremely accurate weather forecast for the next day. So not only it's huge impact, it's also hugely profitable and scalable opportunity. Let me give you another example. So on one side of the world, we have food security problem, but on the other side of the world, we have food waste problem. If food waste was a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world. It's just crazy how much food we waste. Solution, one of the companies that we have invested in is Karma app. So here, restaurant owners, if you haven't sold all your meals that day, you can post your leftover meals on the app, and then consumers can buy that at 50% discount. So that's one way how we can contribute towards addressing the food waste. And solutions like this need capital to scale. They are powerful. But then when you look at what is the money doing, where is the money going today? So these two bars are comparing the general investment market and the impact investment markets. Today, less than 1% of capital is invested in companies that address impact through their business models. At the same time, tech is better funded than ever. It's fantastic to see that tech is booming all around Europe in Baltics, but none of that, or not enough of that, is going into impact. So what we did at Norsken 3 years ago is that we raised the first fund with the ask towards our investors, can you please let us prove that you can combine impact and profits? You can be an impact-driven VC while generating world-class VC returns. And we were lucky enough that these 4 gentlemen believed in us. These are 4 Swedish tech unicorn founders. And since then, they have allowed us to prove our investment thesis. We have invested in over 20 different companies that drive positive impact for people or planet. And so far, our investments have been across categories like environment, health and well-being, transparency. So truly diverse portfolio. And with the track record that we have today, we're really proud to say that we can now prove that we can, in fact, sit right in the middle between doing good and also being a world-class VC delivering really, really strong returns. But one question I get all the time, so I want to hit it head on and address it straight away, is how do you measure impact? What's an impact company? Well, broadly, we say that we focus on companies that generate positive impact for people and planet. But let's take one example to really walk through what we mean by that. For each investment that we make, we map out the impact across 3 layers. You have the short-term, immediately measurable one, and then the long-term goals. So let's use Tesla as an example of how we would look at impact or how we would measure impact. So first of all, you can see what you can measure is how many cars did Tesla produce. That's one of the KPIs. The next level is, what do those cars equal in terms of CO2 emissions? If you assume that for every Tesla, you're taking out a petrol or diesel car. So you can aggregate that and estimate. So what does that mean in terms of CO2 emissions? But the third, and actually the most important one, is the long-term impact. The true impact of Tesla is that today, every major automaker in the world is rolling out electric vehicles. And that's what we mean by systematic change. So for every single company that we invest, we identify the short-term KPIs. What does that equal in terms of impact? But what are we really trying to change? What's the long-term systematic thing that we're trying to address? And The other question I get all the time is, sounds nice, but can you really truly say that there is no trade-off between impact and profits? If you're pressed against the wall, which one will you choose? And I can truly say that the companies that we focus on, you can say that for every unit of sales, there is also a unit of impact, that the impact is the core of the business model. But I would also like to go a step further, which is what the below graphs show, is that I fundamentally believe that impact startups will outperform the market. Why? Well, there is a lot of research out there. So if you look at this graph, MBA students around the world were asked, would you want to work for an impact company? And what pay cut would you accept to work for an impact company versus a generalist company? 83% of them said that they would take a 15% pay cut to work for an impact company. Equally, consumers today say that 73% of consumers say that they would pay more for sustainable products. So what that means is that impact companies have a huge, huge competitive advantage in terms of hiring the best talent, because the talent today is looking for purpose. And if you can give that, you can pick the talent that works for your company. And at the same time, on the consumer, that you can really stand out from the market and give consumers what they want. And in some ways, this is kind of old news, because if you look at the public listed markets, how public stocks have been trading, really crazy graph. You don't need to read it into details, but the key takeaway is that what it shows, it compares the sustainability-focused listed companies versus other listed companies. And it shows that sustainability-focused companies have been consistently outperforming. It's already happening in the publicly listed markets. So it's only natural that startups will follow and are already following today. So that's why we at Norsken are hugely driven by creating the best environment for the impact tech startups to succeed. And we do that today in 3 ways. We have our co-working office space impact hubs. Today we have a space in Stockholm that's home to over 100 different impact tech startups. We're opening more houses around Europe. Secondly, we have something called Impact Week, which is very similar to what we have here today at TechChill, but exclusively focused on impact. And of course, last but not least, we also have our impact-focused VC, which is a €100 million fund that we're focused on investing today. And where do we invest? I think I've already sort of mentioned that a few times, but we are an impact-focused investor. That's the first lens we use when we look at the companies that we scout. But we also demand financial returns. We want to be just as good or even better than other VCs out there and really show that there is no trade-off between the two. And we're focused on tech, so that's our niche vertical within the startup space. And we invest in early stages. So I've talked a lot about the impact that the startups generate and how we measure that impact across 3 different levels. So it is only fair for us to look at ourselves and ask, well, what's the impact that we generate and what's kind of our 3-level impact map? Well, first of all, the immediate one is I really hope that the first-hand impact is that we put in business these impact tech startups by investing in them. And by building their startups, they're immediately creating impact. The second level is that we really hope that by proving to everyone that this works, that you can have impact and profits, we really hope that we will inspire a lot more VCs to go into space, to recognize it as a standalone strategy for outperformance. And the ultimate impact of that will be that we really hope to drive a shift of capital, so that graph I showed you earlier on, where only less than 1% of capital was flowing into impact as business, we want to shift that majorly and shift trillions of capital, and that will be the long-term systematic change. And I'm also hugely optimistic because here We've spent the whole afternoon focused on sustainability, impact, green tech, and I think it's one of the signs that we are already on the way and that ripple is getting bigger and bigger, and it becomes harder and harder to ignore this as an investable space. So thank you so much for today. And yes, two key takeaways is that impact startups are key to solving some of our most pressing global challenges, and two, they are an excellent investment choice. Thank you very much.